Welcome to Sunday evening. It's particularly wintry right now as we close in on Christmas, all the festivities. How are you today?
I was in Leeds yesterday with the my music friends for quite a long bar crawl. So I think if
Okay.
I think I've felt better.
Okay, well, I'm sure you'll be lively and we look forward to that. If you feel woozy at any stage, just indicate and faint. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. So we are partway through our reflections on our pick of the year, and so far we have done films, and we have done albums, and we have done books. And tonight we're going to focus on two primary things, but we'll also dip into other things as well. So our first task is to pick our gigs of the year, and Graham, I really do look forward to your choices for this. Um, so it's been a busy year yet again for both of us. I actually think I preferred gigs to albums this year overall.
Yeah, loads of gigs, and next year's got even more. Everybody
Mm,
these days is playing live because that's where the money is. So
exactly.
there's just a huge amount of good gigs now. Yeah, even if I was wealthy and didn't work, I couldn't actually see all the gigs that I'd like to go to.
No, absolutely. And because there's other things you've got to do as well. Plus, it's not cheap. I mean, it's a bit cheaper than going to the World Cup, but not much. So, Graham, do you want to bash away with your top three?
Well, yeah, it's quite tricky because I went to Deershed Festival in North Yorkshire,
Yes.
which is a fantastic, all indie, high quality, very civilized festival. And so I could have picked Hamish Hop from there, but I
Yeah.
decided not to. And obviously went to Leeds Festival at Bramham Park again, and I quite like Royal Lotus, but
Mm.
I didn't think the headliners were very good, so I'm not going to pick that. And then I
Strong for
thought, what
next
about
year, though,
Tangerine
Graham.
Dream?
Headliners look strong for next year.
Oh yeah, Leeds Festival last year looks fantastic. It wasn't
Mm.
so hot last summer,
No, but it
I
is
didn't
this
think.
coming. This is a really good summer coming.
Yeah,
So,
agree entirely. But
mm.
Tangerine Dream at Viva Studio in Manchester, that was a very interesting gig. It was like being at a 1970s lecture, but with electronic music rather than a academic talking to you.
Right, just remind our listeners how many original members of Tangerine Dream were actually in this gig.
0.0.
How come Tangerine Dream, with no original members, is right up there?
Well, it's quite normal degrees of the no degrees. Uh, so it's quite normal. But two of the members did actually play with Edgar Froese, the founder,
Ah, fair enough.
before he died, and he gave his blessings to Tangerine Dream to carry on making music and playing live with the
Yeah,
name but no original members. So it's a bit like they've regenerated like Doctor Who into new versions, younger versions of the originals.
it really ought to be called Satsuma Dream. I mean, that would be more truthful.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'm not going to pick that instead because it just seemed too academic, even though it was great. So I'm going to go
Hmm.
for first of all a man
Yes.
from Guillemots, the Naughties band, who
Oh,
did sort
yes.
of like big, winsome maximalist pop songs before maximalist pop was big itself, and did a
Hmm.
great album called From the Window Pane and Red.
Hmm. Oh,
And
yes.
Fife Dangerfield, the singer and the songwriter, was playing a new venue in Leeds, the Attic, a very sort of like basic level, very old school venue. And he just had his grand piano and a acoustic guitar, and that was it, nothing else. And he was absolutely phenomenal. I've never seen a man with so much talent pouring out of his fingers. He was almost alarmingly energetic and talented. He's like a man in search of direction. It's like there's nothing he couldn't do musically. And I think that's probably his problem. He's always needed he's needed to find someone else who's as good as him to make it all coherent. But it
I
was
mean,
an amazing
his
gig.
surname sums him up. Dangerfield.
Exactly, yeah. But he was fantastic.
Hmm.
And number
Underappreciated,
two,
I think, Graham. He is underappreciated.
completely. Oh yeah, probably the most talented songwriter in Britain who's not really been successful.
Hmm. Number two.
Yeah, well, I love field music, so I've only saw him twice this year. Once at the Brooknell in Leeds
Very
for the
restrained.
20th anniversary of their first album, and
Yeah.
but before that, I saw them in Carlisle at the old fire station, which was an old fire station, but it had been converted into a nice little arts venue, and they were great there. Being in Carlisle, which is an underrated town, and being up front and close watching Peter Bruce and David Bruce live is always a great joy. And
Mm.
they're a lot more lively, spontaneous, and fun live than they are on record.
I think that's a good choice again, Graham. There again, I think a situation where yes, you can the albums, but we go to live music because it brings something extra. The unpredictability,
Completely.
how performers match together, the mood of the night, the mood of the audience, all these things. To me, I mean, I'm finding I'm getting more and more emotional at concerts now, and I don't know whether this is a sense of nostalgia waving over me, but I've been crying at two concerts this week.
You're probably crying at the ticket price. That's what it is.
Graham, but I'm reviewing, so I'm avoiding ticket price. But
Oh, I forgot you don't pay.
no, this is true. But I've been really emotional at concerts this week, and
Mm.
not shocked myself with that happening. But I just think that is the power of live music.
Well, I agree. I agree. And I think Field Music should do a live album because
Mm,
their studio records are fantastic. They're really intelligent, clever, constantly interesting,
mm.
constantly changing band. But there's something dry about them on record that is completely different to their live. And I think they should do a live album.
I think you should, you know the boys well. I think you should put it to them in person.
Well, they're never short of ideas, so they don't need me chipping in.
Well, you say that, Graham, but they played at your birthday party, and they agreed to do that.
It was extremely nice of them, and it was a fantastic, memorable occasion.
It was. So, Graham, last and most major of all choices.
Well, yeah, I thought I'd go for something that makes me sound very intelligent and highfalutin. So, my gig of the year that I saw personally was the great American jazz musician Kamasi Washington at Project House in Leeds.
Another comparatively new venue as well, Graham Project House, of course.
Yeah, it's only been a couple of years. It's run by the Broodnell. It's
Yeah.
their breakout space for acts that are now too big to play the Broodnell,
Mm.
but not big enough to play arenas. So they're hoovering up lots of great live acts as the Project House in Leeds.
Yeah.
And Kamasi is obviously a superb musician,
Mm.
you know, proper modern version of old school great jazz.
Mm.
And it was a bit like being at a rock gig where Wynton Marsalis was playing, except Kamasi doesn't wear like suits like Wynton tends to do. He was dressed like a African warrior.
Oh,
So
really?
the whole gig was very colourful, very lively.
Mm.
And considering how good the jazz was and how good the playing of him and his band was, it was a great deal of fun. It wasn't like a po-faced,
No.
stroking your chin and going, "Yeah, I really dig that, man." It was actually a lot of fun.
Well, excellent choices, Graham. Um, so we come to my choices, and I could give honourable mentions, but I'm just going to focus on the three in what was a really strong year, I think, as I say. And the first of which is Divine Comedy, playing at York Barbican. And Neil Hannon is the consummate frontman. Elegant, eloquent, charming, sophisticated, witty, like his songs. And he had, as ever, surrounded himself with joyful musicians, all at the top of their game as well. And he just one little touch that I loved within it that I thought was fun, which, as an unconventional way to introduce the band, he had a drinks trolley brought out, and he poured each member of the band a drink. So he'd ask them what they wanted, they would say, and he poured them a drink. So you got in that moment, rather than that slightly awkward it can be when people rush through the names of band members, it actually gave each of them their moment in the spotlight while being able to enjoy ordering a drink. I thought just a typical clever novel touch there by Neil Hannon.
That's the sort of thing that Rod Stewart and the Faces would have done in the very early 1970s. And it's possibly the only time you'd ever compare Divine Comedy to Rod Stewart and
I
the
wasn't
Faces.
seeing those two to be in the same sentence ever at all. I certainly wasn't imagining that. So that was choice number 3. And number 2 was a venue that you and I have grown to really love, which is the Old Woolen at Farsley. And this was for Nouvelle Vague, or Nouvelle Vague, as the American voice
Mm.
keeps insisting on saying on Alexa. Nouvelle Vague, of course, bossa nova,
French New Wave.
French New Wave, all sorts of different meanings of Nouvelle Vague. And this was a celebration with, I mean, you'd think it might be a one-trick pony, finding ways to put bossa nova through any number of hits, American, British, French, you name it. But it wasn't, and it isn't. And they have that cliche as it is, French chic, but they are French chic. That is very much the style. They had, I think, Melanie Pain, I think that's how you would probably pronounce it, as in bread. But she doesn't sing like a loaf of bread, that's for sure. And I mean, they have, as we know, they have always had varied vocalists. And indeed, actually, later on in the tour, they had two different vocalists to the two that sang in the Old Woolen. What I partly loved about it was the Old Woolen is an old wool mill. And it's therefore you think, well, what's this absolutely divine, chic French band doing in there? But that's what I like.
Oh yeah, it's more like Ian McMillan's gaff.
It is. But on the other hand, when they kept saying Leeds rather than Farsley, which I kind of understood, they were kind of making out that it was a Leeds gig. I kind of understood why they did that. But actually, the audience was equally sophisticated in its own way, and which I liked about it. And they were very much at home there. And after the gig, they all came and signed albums and whatever. And I just smiled from start to finish, from every two Depeche Mode songs, for example, Smith's "This Charming Man," which I hadn't heard them do before, and I just found myself wreathed in smiles and loving French pronunciations and loving the sophistication of it. And so I was in French paradise that night. And
I'm not surprised, Charles.
and I sort of went
It
on a
sounds
spur
right
of
up
the
your
moment.
street.
I
Yeah,
got
right up your
late,
street.
yeah, absolutely. I got a late invitation to go, and I thought, yes, I'm going to go to this, and it was absolutely joyful. So now my gig of the year is partly this. It's partly shaped by what had just gone on. So the context. This is Richard Hawley's gig at York Museum Gardens, and it was at the same time that Oasis were, of course, doing their summer tour. And I'm not making a comparison between the two. Beyond, as we know, each time Live Forever was done, it was a tribute was done to whoever had died. Who, recently, it's been Manny from Stone Roses, while they've been playing in Australia, been paying tribute to him. Now, on the night that Richard Hawley played, and the reason I'm making this link between the two is that at both concerts, it was just after Diego Jota had died. And of course, Richard Hawley, big Sheffield Wednesday fan, and loves football. And they came on stage.
And Jota was Liverpool.
It was Liverpool.
Jota was Liverpool. Yeah,
it was Liverpool. But the significance was that Richard Hawley and all the band, at short notice, had managed to find red attire to wear for the concert, which looked staggeringly good in that night sky of York. Anyway, it's a gorgeous color at night, as we know, sky at night and red and all that. And then he went on just suddenly to explain why he was wearing red. And it's not because he's converted to Sheffield United. He suddenly said it's because of Diego Jota. And you could feel, not that the mood of the concert changed, but just the thought that, this was a beautifully well-judged way of appreciating a football talent. That obviously football, in moments of grief, becomes universal, and it goes beyond football, and it goes beyond tribalism. And music is very much like that, I think. And it was just very appropriate, and it was a typical gesture of Richard Hawley, who can be very emotional. That's his nature of his songwriting, is to be emotional. But he's always tapped in, I think, to the common man's, and I mean the commonality among man, about our emotions, about what moves us. And that was just so well judged within that. It was already a beautiful concert anyway. This was a concert celebration of the anniversary of perhaps the greatest of all of Richard Hawley's albums, the one where the album sleeve was famously not in Sheffield, but was actually at the Stephen Joseph Theatre in Scarborough. Can you remember
Cole's Corner?
Yeah, Cole's Corner.
Is it Cole's Corner? Yeah.
Yeah. So they
I
played
have a
with.
problem with Richard Hawley, as you
Go
know,
on.
because
Mm,
he's very talented. He
yes.
doesn't do anything rubbish.
Where's the but?
You know, he's a nice guy, but
Yeah. It's pretty good, but so far.
he's so tasteful. He never excites me.
You
And I'm not
see,
saying that Richard Hawley is actually Richard Horlicks, but
oh,
it's
Graham, it's a
not.
good
It
line.
never,
Don't like it though.
yeah, it never quite gets me going. So even though I respect the guy, he's not one of my favorites.
So I don't agree with that
Mm.
because
There's a surprise.
because there's grit in Richard Hawley.
Yeah, it's very rounded, warm grit though. It's not really scratchy, annoying grit.
I don't like scratchy annoying grit a lot of the time.
I like a little bit, a
I don't
little
like
bit.
grit that you can't get out the eye. I don't like that. And I don't
Well,
want music that does
yeah.
that to me either.
Well, yeah. Apart from
I
Public Image
see he
Limited,
takes me
yeah,
to places like
yeah.
he takes me to joyful places. And of course, as a Yorkshireman, that's a whole fifth
Mm,
gear to
mm,
Richard Hawley. He's also a
yeah,
wondrous guitar player. And I
that's
love the way
true.
he dresses. I love his
Well,
style.
he's on his own Pulp's album as well. Like he's been a
Yes, he
long
is. And
time contributor to
he
Pulp.
appeared
So
at
yeah,
the Brit Awards playing with
I'm
Pulp, of course.
I'm going to back down and surrender on this point because you have made some good points there.
I wish you would appreciate Richard Hawley to the level that I do, and
Mm.
so that it was by far the most joyful concert night. And my good friend Miles Salter at that concert, suddenly he was transcendent into dancing just on his own in a lovely way,
Mm.
and that's the kind of effect that that music was having that night. How he was in that moment, he was just caught in the joy of the concert, and
Yeah,
so I treasure that night. It was very special in every way. The Diogo Jota tribute, Cole's Corner, such a sublime album, and Richard Hawley being on top form. So that way above others was my gig of the year. Just honourable mentions to two. Shed Seven
mm.
played at Scarborough for the first time at the Open Air Theatre, and they are getting better and better as a live band now. They were pretty damn
Yeah.
good
No,
last year in their
they're
third,
they're on the best form of their whole lives. It's amazing to
absolutely.
see.
And they played Glastonbury as well as part of the joy of that. So, and the other one was John Bramwell from I Am Clute, who
Oh
is
yeah.
one of those musicians who I wish would be more appreciated than he is. I suppose I Am Clute had their moments of that, but he gives. I love the way that when he plays a small venue, he gives absolutely everything to a concert. He's witty.
Mm.
He's prepared to change the set list and do unexpected things, and he's self-deprecating, but he also champions the importance of music, and he makes a point of saying that. And so that was my second of my honourable mentions. So I think this year's been for gigs. It's been a really outstanding year, and the fact that there are more gigs than ever that bands want to do can only benefit the fact that we get to see as much as we do.
Yeah. Well said, Charles.
Mm. Now, Graham, we will come on to our second best of the year. But I think there's other topics that we just briefly need to go through, which is that you did correctly, I believe, predict that the person that you wanted to win the Turner Prize would not win the Turner Prize. I think you've been proven correct.
100%. The winner was the Glaswegian female artist Nina Kalu, who's neurodiverse and autistic
Yeah.
and has learning disabilities, which to my mind is interesting, but has nothing unless it's got something specific that makes it brilliant art. I don't really care about backstories. I care about what the art is. So when I went to see the Turner
Mm.
Prize exhibition at Cartwright Hall in
Mm.
Bradford, and it was a great place, great visit. There was four artists,
Yes.
and two of them made good political points, but one of the artists, the paintings weren't actually that brilliant, but they were good ideas. The other one was all photography and found objects about personal life in all these political movements, and
Mm.
so both those things ticked lots of PC political boxes, but they didn't they weren't great. And the one I liked was a Canadian Korean artist who lives in London now, Zadie Exa,
Mm.
and she'd created a whole room from top to bottom, including her artworks in the room, with a golden reflective floor, which meant when you looked at the floor, you saw everybody and everything that was in the room below your feet, like you were walking on gossamer. And it was a fantastically, truly immersive experience. Not the word immersive is thrown about like confetti these days. It was completely immersive, very comforting in a slightly weird psychedelic way. And I thought, this is amazing. I bet you this doesn't win. And I bet you, because Nina Kalu's work is colourful
Yeah.
and quite simple, doesn't really say very much, and
No.
because she has got a huge backstory, I
Yeah.
bet you she wins. And I was absolutely correct.
The thing is, Graham, when you're looking at art, you can't look at the backstory.
Well, these days that's not true because
Well,
the
you can
last
read
20
about you can read
years,
about the
the,
backstory, and you can see notes about the backstory. It's not the
yeah,
art, and ultimately, it has to be the
yeah.
art.
Well, I think the Turner Prize hasn't had a truly memorable winner for about 20 years now, and
Mm,
certainly hasn't produced a winner that became a household name. And I
no.
think it's because the backstories become the front story
Yeah.
when
Well,
picking
you can never
the
read
winner
a
of the
piece.
Turner Prize.
You can never read a piece of art unless it's got a bit of handwriting on it. But anyway, there we go.
If you
The
have
good
to read
news
the
is
notes,
the
yeah,
good news
if
is,
you have to
Graham,
read the notes, it's not great art.
I
You shouldn't have to
absolutely
read
agree. You
notes
should
to
always
get
be able
it.
to look at the piece first and then maybe read about it afterwards. Now, Graham, the good news is that, of course, that it is running and for quite some time still. You've got plenty of
Mm.
opportunities still to see this exhibition. So, Graham, just briefly before we choose our TV shows of the year, you want to say why you love Robin's new single, Dopamine or Dopamine?
Well, yeah, well, I'm not a huge Robin fan. I haven't got any
No,
Robin albums,
no.
but I keep on hearing on BBC Music, her new single Dopamine,
Mm,
and she's the Swedish electronic singer-songwriter,
yes.
quite icy, and this is her first release for a long time,
Mm,
and it's just a great tune. It like sticks in your head.
mm,
But what makes this electronic slice of electronic pop so good is that, like Donna Summer's "I Feel Love," because it's got a great melody and it's a good song, the instrumentation and the performance and the production lets the song and the sentiments breathe on their own. It doesn't force things into the song. It
mm,
doesn't try and grab your attention. And what's particularly good about it, and what makes it a song that's better than just being a pop song, and much better than most of the pop that dominates the streaming world, although Robin's hardly obscure, is that the contrast between the very icy synths and the very flat voice with the deep emotions of the actual lyrics
mm,
and what the song is actually about. And by doing that, by having that iciness combined with deep lyrics,
mm.
it gives an impression that this woman cares about what she's singing because she's so upset she can't even express emotions. She's not going to color up for you. She's not going to chuck things at you. She's not going to try and persuade you. She's just going to let it sit there and you come to it. And it's just a great pop tune.
Dopamine's a kind of title you'd think that should have been a pop hit title before. Great name for a pop song.
Well, I assumed it was an old track when I first heard it in
Mm,
BBC Music. I thought, oh,
mm,
this must be an old track, but it's not. It's great.
mm.
Dopamine.
So, Graham, we'll probably hold back on the overrated Lily Allen album till next week.
I'm
Because we
dying to
need,
talk about that.
I can't. Well, that's right. I think we need to do it in proper depth. And
Mm.
so instead, we're going to look at our top three TV shows of the year. Would you like me to go first?
Yeah, you go first.
I'll go first. Now, so I'm going to give honourable mentions in passing to two Irish TV moments of the year. Trespasses. Did you see
Mm.
Trespasses?
I saw
Which,
bits of it. I didn't see the whole thing.
so I thought it had again. It's becoming very. I don't use the word
Ireland's
fashionable,
in.
but the Ireland is in.
Ireland's
I
so
imagine
in.
there's loads of money being thrown at both sides of Ireland to do so much as they are.
Mm.
Along with Blue Lights, the latest series of which I thought was outstanding again. So they were the
Yeah, it
two,
was great set in Belfast.
and Trespasses had that thing of it's a period that obviously needs to be talked about, the Troubles. It absolutely does, and I thought it came up with a new angle on it really, really strongly. Blue Lights is just tense, dramatic the whole way through. You really care about the characters, isn't it? I think it's superbly filmed. Two briefly other honourable mentions. The Hack, because of journalism. Did you see The Hack?
Oh yeah, that was fantastic. Not only did they have a great cast throughout each episode, and not only was
Exactly.
David Tennant fantastic, he was
It
the main
was.
thread in terms of
Mm.
the cast, but it was such a shocking expose of not just how News International worked in a corrupt fashion or the
Mm-mm.
Met Police worked in a corrupt fashion. It was a complete damning indictment of the British establishment, and I
Yep.
think that's why it wasn't a huge hit because I don't think anybody in Britain wanted to see it because it
Yeah.
made the British system look pretty bad.
Yeah. So they were honourable mentions. So my choices, and
Mm.
were Riot Women, Sally
Oh yeah.
Wainwright, Hebden Bridge.
Mm.
I mean, Sally Wainwright does Yorkshire absolute wonders consistently. This, of course, was this unlikely on one level, and yet it absolutely worked. This is the story of, I think it's fair to say, middle-aged women and facing middle-aged women's issues, myriad women's issues, forming a effectively a punk band in middle age.
Yeah. Yeah. In Hebden Bridge, you can believe it. You know what Hebden Bridge is like. That's
Well,
definitely believable.
absolutely. What I loved about it is that you were absolutely drawn into each of the individual stories within it and how they interacted,
And the
and
acting was great.
the acting was, as ever with Sally Wainwright's work, was phenomenal. I mean, it's gorgeous to material to work with, and it was compulsive. It was funny. It was dramatic, and it was also bloody great Yorkshire, which I always am in favour of.
Yeah. Yeah,
So I
indeed. Yeah.
absolutely loved that.
Yeah. Yeah. It made Yorkshire look like a special place,
Indeed,
which I
it
know
did.
you think that already.
Of course. Now, this may be too obvious, but I've found this joyful from start to finish, mainly because
Mm.
Alan Carr won. And Celebrity Traitors, you may think, oh, well, it's a bit obvious because having celebrities doing something that's already a great idea. Traitors is already working really, really well.
Mm.
I, I just I found myself compulsively watching and enjoying the villainy. So I'm Jonathan Ross seen in a new light within it, and very enjoyable. Alan Carr, absolutely, and to see Stephen Fry being outdone by him, etc. All that was so. This is not me sort of jumping on board celebrity culture and only watching it because it was celebrities. First of all, they were celebrities. Pretty well, we knew all of them, and therefore it was interesting to see them interacting.
Mm.
But secondly, because some of it just seemed to be just stupid decision making, which made it even more joyful. So
Yeah.
everything
Yeah,
about
I'm quite surprised you picked this because if you're going to start going into game show territory, I'm going to pick The Wheel with Michael McIntyre
no,
on BBC One
that's
on
a
Saturday night.
shocking comparison. You know, I can't stand a single thing that Michael McIntyre does. No, Graham, it's not that kind of show at all. This is not. It's not even like what is it called? I'm a
I know.
celebrity.
It's a
I'm a
spurious
celebrity.
comparison by
I'm a
me.
celebrity. Turn the TV off. The point
Yeah,
in Graham here was you. That's not how I felt it worked on as a celebrity vehicle. They really went in for it big time.
that's true.
They
That's
weren't
true.
trying to make themselves celebrities, which is largely what programs like I'm a Celebrity has become. They were
Mm,
already
mm.
stars, and that wasn't the issue. It was fascinating them just to watch these people rubbing up
Yeah,
against each
they
other in
had
the ways
nothing
that
to prove, so they were
no.
bizarrely better as candidates in that show than normal members of the public are.
So I don't even know whether Celebrity Traitors should ever be repeated. I do wonder whether it should just be a one-off because it works so well. Because
Well,
these things,
it's coming back a couple of weeks' time, so
what a surprise! But these
or
things
maybe not a couple
become
of weeks' time. It's coming
these things
back for sure.
become they become
Mm,
knowing, and I always think that's got a negative. Oh my word, we're running out of time. This is right. Rush. Okay, now,
yeah.
so for the top choice, I'm afraid I'm
Mm,
going two top choice.
mm.
Adolescence, because it's an extraordinary piece of work on every level to be filmed the way that it was filmed.
And Stephen
The
Graham's
subject
in it.
matter, Stephen Graham's
Mm.
performance, Kane Davis's performance, and Philip Barantini's direction. It has been so influential, both in terms of what the storytelling was, the subject
Was
matter,
that
the way it
Netflix?
was
What
done.
channel was that on?
Do you know? I can't even tell you what channel it was
Okay.
on. It possibly
So
might well
to
have been.
speed things up, what's your next choice for top
Right. So
equal top?
again from the northwest of this country, This City Is Ours, which was
Oh yeah, Liverpool.
James Nelson Joyce's. I mean, he's already
Great
done
crime drama.
a great crime drama in Liverpool. He plays
Mm.
Michael, who's the heir apparent. Of course,
It
you
was
got
sort of
Sean
like
Bean.
the Liverpudlian version of Michael Mann's Heat.
Absolutely. And so, I mean, Adolescence, I think, is the most significant TV of the year. But in terms of
Mm.
what worked really, really well as a drama and also had a kind of breakout star in James Nelson Joyce, I thought This City Is Ours was outstanding as well. So that's my choices.
Right.
Graham, yours, which is not much
Cool.
time.
Number three, Shifty, the documentary series by the great documentary filmmaker and cultural political analyst Adam Curtis on BBC
Oh,
iPlayer,
yes.
which
Yes.
explored how Thatcher's ideas had eventually sifted into everything in British life. It was constantly fascinating, had no narration. It was just fantastic editing of clips and
Yeah.
soundscapes. The next thing I absolutely loved, well, I loved The Hack and I loved Blue Lights and I loved Slow Horses on Apple and I
I didn't
loved Your
mention Slow
Friends and
Horses. Good
Neighbours.
choice.
Your Friends and Neighbours with John Hamm, who was hilarious as the high-flying financier who takes up crime when his life falls apart. It's just brilliant, Your Friends and Neighbours.
Yes.
But my number 2 is The Studio, Seth Rogen's comedy on Apple, where he plays a film producer in Hollywood, and real Hollywood stars turn up in it, and they're lampooned, and he's lampooned, and it's a great satire on modern Hollywood. The Studio, you got to see it, fantastic. Number 1, controversial, Say Nothing, about the Troubles in Northern Ireland, based on the book by Patrick Radden Keefe. And the book itself is controversial because it took the story of the disappearance of Catholic mum Jean McConville in 1972 and wrapped it up in the whole story of members of the IRA from the 70s to the present day, and the idea of like guilt and atonement and truth. And it was a controversial book because it mixed and matched stories and mixed and matched sources, and it was a bit sketchy with some of the facts. And those things play out in the TV series in the 9 episodes. But it's so brilliantly done. It is the most human portrayal of terrorism and terrorists and the victims of terrorism that's ever been in BBC TV. It was not BBC TV, on British TV. It's a Channel 4 series, and it's got brilliant acting from start to finish by Irish actors. It's gripping to watch. It's not dry or hard to watch, but it's also quite upsetting as well. It hooks you in but upsets you, and it's also the most sympathetic portrayal of the IRA you will ever get on British television. And it makes up for that towards the end by focusing on the Sinn Féin leader, Gerry Adams, and trying to turn it into how bad Gerry Adams is, as if to atone for the first half of the series where the IRA were shown to be, doing things in a justified fashion because of the situation that Northern Ireland was in at that time. It's just an amazing program. And I think that's why it was largely ignored, because nobody in Britain wants to know that the IRA might have had a point. That there's still pretty much persona non grata. And, the whole situation was appalling. But there was as many deaths by Protestant paramilitaries and the RUC and the British state and army as there was by the IRA. So you've got to see the whole thing in the round, even though so many horrible things were done by everybody on all sides. And this is a really gripping, important series, Say Nothing.
It's been a remarkable series, a year for Irish television making, and quite extraordinary. If you're an Irish actor, loads of work out there right now.
Well, yeah, you see some of the same cast members turning up in different series. That's how many there are now. But they are, because they've got a point. The thing about Northern Ireland dramas is they've got crime involved, which is, everybody loves a crime story. But they've also got things that matter. And the dramas make a point at all times. But this isn't just like watching Midsomer Murders. This is based on real stuff, and not stuff that's even that old. It's still fairly recent, or in fact is current. So they're really important TV series in Ireland in terms of Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland. And they're usually really well made.
You've been listening to the podcast Two Big Egos in a Small Car. Your hosts were Graham Chalmers and Charles Hutchinson. This was a Baltic Sub production.